Hello and welcome everyone in another episode of Researcher Celebrity. Today we have Dr. Neetu Saini with us. Dr. Neetu has done her bachelor's and master's from Delhi University in Department of Biochemistry, and then she moved to NCBS Bangalore to pursue her PhD, and presently she is a postdoctoral researcher at Stanford, California. With this brief introduction, welcome Dr. Neetu.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. And it's a great pleasure to share my journey on this wonderful platform that you have set up. So, yeah, I think we can.
Oh, great. So our first question is always that how and when you decided that you wanted to be a researcher.
So, my journey might be a little different. I don't know in what sense, but I am actually a first generation learner in my family, which means growing up, I didn't have anybody to look up to pursue study or what kind of career I want in my family because my parents never been to school. So, I needed two motivation in my life. One, to study, and then second, if I want to study, what I want to study.
Mhm.
So in that sense, in my journey, my teachers and the mentors have played a very big role throughout this journey, me being here. And for my thinking that I want to do research came from one such experience that I had during my BSc. So after I did my first year of bachelor's, I got an opportunity to do a summer internship in University of Delhi, and I was coincident that it also was a department of biochemistry where I ended up also being doing my master's later with Professor Sunil Kateria. And that was my first experience to really see how research world or the scientific world look like. And so I think that was first time when I really got to read a paper where I could not move more than abstract because I didn't understand anything. But it was an introduction to me and how life of a researcher look like, how it is. Although at that time I couldn't really get an opportunity to work on bench, but I did learn to do research like bioinformatic tools, and I did end up doing something which was novel. And that's what stimulated me like, oh yeah, this is what I think I want in my life. This is so amazing and it's so exciting. And I think that was the time when I decided that I want to be a researcher, and whatever it takes me to be at that space, I'm gonna go for it. So
Mhm.
yeah, so that's where it all started for me to be thinking and making up my mind that I wanted to be a researcher and wanted to go into research.
So it was at bachelor's when you decided that you will do a PhD also.
Yes, yes, because I think I also learned that doing a research you can only get to do actual research in PhD.
Mm-hmm.
With bachelor's and master's, it's just reading and giving exams. So if you want to
Mm-hmm.
be a researcher, you have to do PhD and get that experience in. So yeah.
Great. So here I would like to tell all of our viewers that how Dr. Neetu has said it's like bachelor's and master's are your stepping stones to PhD and to be a researcher. So when you joined this NCBS program for PhD, it is a national program. Were there any considerations that you wanted to do it only at NCBS or in STEM?
Oh, not actually. I wouldn't say
Mhm.
that way because I said my life has been something that I didn't know what my next step gonna be because there was
Mhm.
most of the time it was no one to tell me. So I was
Mhm.
learning as I was progressing. So
Mhm.
frankly telling you, I only came to know about Research Institute in my second year of masters when my
Mhm.
all batchmates started talking about where we all can do PhD. The only place I knew to do PhD was Delhi University.
Mhm.
But then there were many more places I could go. And I was like, yeah, everybody was doing it. Why can't I do it? Let me give a try. And I started preparing for exams. I've written CSR net, applied for all the institutes and all. And I got through most of them. And I was like, okay, cool. But okay, what I want to do PhD in, because that was the second question I had. And I think the one thing I have not mentioned is that before doing my PhD or starting my PhD degree in 2014, I took a year break,
Mhm.
literally to decide what I want to do PhD in because
Wow.
PhD was a long commitment. And
Mhm.
I didn't want to go for a PhD that I didn't find exciting or I wasn't really happy about. So I completed my master's in 2013. I did appear for all the entrance exams for PhD programs and all. I did got through a lot of good institutes in India like ISC, NAI in Delhi, IGIB. But because I couldn't make up my mind what I want to do PhD in. There was two
Mhm.
reasons for that. One, I did my all basic training in biochemistry at the university, which was a really good thing because I got to learn that field a lot. And Delhi University also gives you opportunity to do a bench work for a year. So I literally understood that field well. And with
Mhm.
that understanding, I also knew I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
That okay, this is not something I want to do for my PhD. That was very cell function, how the
Mhm.
complexities in the cells comes in up more than studying a protein outside the cell. So it's like I
Mhm.
want to learn how cells communicate, what's literally going in the cell. And
Mhm.
sometimes I used to imagine opening, I'm like literally doing a postmortem of a cell and just to look at it, I'm like, whoa,
Mhm.
this is how it works. So this is something I was like really excited about. But I did not have any experience in that. I was only read that through books. So I was also very naive. I wasn't sure if something I could do or I really want to do, but I don't know how it looks like because I've never been on the bench. So with that confusion, I decided not to enroll for any of these PhD program I got through, but
Mhm.
instead do a year of JRF in a lab which does cell biology and explore that field. So that
Mhm.
when next year I'm ready to enroll for a PhD program, I'm sure what I want to do in my PhD program. So yeah, so that 1 year really actually opened up a thing, and I did my GRF shape because I already had my CSR funding, so it wasn't a problem to find a good lab to do it. And then at the end of it, I was like, yeah, now I know what I want to do PhD in, and I'm ready for it. So yeah.
I think that was the most important, and I will say that this should be important to all of our audience and viewers, that take your time to decide that what is the science which you are going to pursue for 5 years without getting wasted, without getting tired of it, because research is something which everyone knows that it brings stress, but
Mhm.
it brings the fruits also. When your experiments works, you think that that is, you are the king or the queen of the world when you get your publications worked. So when you decided that okay, you want to do PhD in a certain topic in a certain lab, that's when you committed for NCBS in STEM program. How was the journey?
I think it wasn't very smooth. I think I don't know if any PhD student would say that it was smooth, but yeah, I think it all ends in a nice way for everyone, and so did it
Mhm.
was for me as well. But yeah, so I think PhD is always more about failure than the
Mhm.
success and the learning. And I think I've gone through all the phases. I've gone through
Mhm.
the phases where my project didn't work for almost 1.5 years, and I have to give up on that project because there were some issues that were coming up with animals, so I couldn't really pursue. So I have to do a restart, and then after restarting you take some time to build up your project. And on the way I lost, I wouldn't say lost interest, but then things were really moving, so I took a break from that project also. All
Mhm.
tried starting something else, and I think I would say at the end I end up finishing everything that I have started in my PhD. So that was something that was good. And I also realized that was also the spirit of the scientist that was there in me, because it was just doing science. It wasn't like, okay, I got into a project. So this was, I think it was my personal experience, I would say, because it's not like, okay, I have to do a program which is for 5 years and let's start with a project that will end up me getting a paper and completing my PhD requirement and moving it to the next phase. For me, it was like I have to do research. It is irrespective of the fact the project has been given, what has been working, what has not been working. So you keep working, you have a small questions, you explore, okay, that's nice, it worked. Can it be a
Mhm.
new project or not?
Mhm.
You don't know. So
Mhm.
because of all this open minded that I have worked on so many different projects in my PhD,
Mhm.
end up getting all them published. So my PhD is not concentrated to one project or one field. It feels everywhere, but I also feel good because it's like I did science more than
Mhm.
just a PhD or
Mhm.
irrespective of the program. I did a good science. And I think I would say that's how it should be, instead of just being too bounded in a very rigid mindset that go for a program, it's a
Mhm.
PhD, pick up a project, start
Mhm.
working for it, and you should be able to gather the data for that particular project to be able to publish it. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something I don't know if we should be so rigid or should be like, okay, get some exciting question, approach it. It may work, it may not work. Then go for another question. And one thing that I would say is always work on more than one thing. That's
Absolutely.
really important. That's
Uh-huh.
really important. Work more than one question, and it's okay if something doesn't work out. I think it should be okay. Or if you take little extra time, I think that's something we shouldn't really worry about.
Oh, absolutely. And as most of the researchers, I think, will agree with you, because recently this thing is coming up that after a number of years, when things are not working, people are quitting and they are taking steps which are very unfortunate.
Hmm.
The idea comes like, don't marry with the idea. If you
Yes.
think that something is not working, it is always good to give up on something and then
Hmm.
move to the next available thing which you can make it work, because there are things which you simply cannot make work. You cannot break a wall with the head if you are very adamant about it, and that's how research is. You should
Yes.
be always fluid, and you see that if something is not working, some things can be troubleshooted, something cannot. So you have to make those calls. So Neetu, you said you had quite a journey in all of those. When things are working, you are feeling very good, happy about it. So nobody questions you that, oh, why you are happy? Is it working? But when
Yeah.
it is not working, were there incidences or days when you thought that you don't want to be a researcher?
Mm, I think I would say I thought that I don't want to be a researcher because that's the instinct you have.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that is tied up. Something that I could do is like, I don't want to do this PhD or I don't want to do this project because that's frustrating.
Absolutely.
Whether I want to be researcher or not, that's very independent because I'm curious. I want to research something. So
Mm-hmm.
that thing will always be there in me. But the thing is, okay, this thing is not working out with me. If I want to
Mm-hmm.
give up on this or how long I want to keep trying on that,
Mm-hmm.
I think those thoughts always comes in, and I think that's for most of the students because I don't think so. Anybody will say that, oh, I don't want to be researcher. They would be like, oh, I'm so frustrated with this project and question it's not working. I want to give up on that, and they link that to quitting a PhD or not being a researcher. No, you can just shift that and find
Absolutely.
something more stimulating that keeps your spirit of being researcher alive and keep going. So definitely, I had those questions of giving up on the project where things were
Mhm.
not working and I think every time I had that, one thing that I did was going to my mentor and telling her that listen, it's not working out and it's disturbing me a lot because it's not working out and I'm not moving. Like in the last 1 year, I haven't moved anywhere. I
Mhm.
don't know what to do. I'm losing interest now.
Mhm.
So the good thing she always did was giving me a break from that. She's like, because even when my project didn't work initially for 1.5 years, when I was just started my PhD, she was like, okay, that's fine. It's not working out. Do you want to start something else? I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, I would love to. She's like, what? You can. So it's not like I never went back to that project again. I tried it again during my PhD because you don't want to give up. It's just
Mhm.
that project because it was an animal work and things have changed on campus. Animal house place shifted. We have a lot of facilities, a lot of resources changes that we somehow lost the phenotype. But I
Mhm.
did try it again as well. So it's like leaving a project didn't mean that you just leave it. You do try
Mhm.
again. Maybe work now, but sometimes things just don't work the way you say it. Sometimes they end up working again.
Mhm.
They can. So yeah, so one thing I did every time I had those thoughts was to going to my boss and telling her that listen, I'm losing interest, things are not working for me, and it's been really frustrating. And she always was very nice and gave me the ideas how I can proceed. Okay, this is not working right now, just leave it for a while.
Mhm.
Why don't you focus on this and see if that gives you the energy and stimulation, and then we'll come back to this later. And
Mhm.
this one thing actually helped me a lot because one, I could do multiple stuff because every time when I'm leaving something, I have something else that was going on. And
Mhm.
when I always came back to the first thing with fresh energy and things,
Mhm.
it worked out for me most of the time that it ended up working. So I think that's what when I say that you should have more than one thing going on because
Mhm.
trying to be sticking to one idea, hellbent, I think does not work. And also you lose your energy doing it at a point.
I think this is the most important part, which I would like to share with all of our viewers here. As Neetu simply just said, that take time out, you are burned with an idea. Start something new because you already have scratched the surface. So now when you are revisiting the same project, you already have done some fundamental work for that. Now the chances of it working is way more than anything else. Okay. So revisiting the ideas, revisiting the projects which you have initiated at some point of time, and now you have more data to publish also because you have generated that. One thing which is the most important takeaway from Neetu's phase, I will say, was researcher never gives up. You are doing PhD or not is a different thing. You might quit on PhD, but you can never give up on research. That's what makes researchers as researcher, because researchers never quit. They might change in due course of time. The projects, the fields they are doing, they are studying, the questions might change, but researcher, the soul always remains the same. And we are fortunate to have researchers like Neetu who are so clear, who takes their time to make up their mind to do something and then gives all what it takes. So Neetu, you said that you were the first one, to do all this higher education, and then you just created this path for your own. Then now moving from Delhi to Bangalore for your PhD, and now moving all across India to United States. How this journey was for a researcher as well as on a personal ground.
So I think on a personal level, it was little difficult initially because when I told my parents that I want to leave Delhi, they weren't very happy or excited about it. One, because they were like, they themselves didn't know how the world looked like outside Delhi. They never traveled outside Delhi. And being the girl, and I want to travel all the way to Bangalore in southern part of India, where at that point you didn't have good mobile communication and not so much affordability of flights and all. So we're like, okay, how are we gonna get it work? And I had to really convince them, like, don't worry, I have my funding, and she was giving me everything, and I just let me go. I'll be fine. And I just told them, I'm just going for a year. I'll be back. Don't worry. And I'm so fortunate that my parents got convinced. I had to do little drama, but that's a different story. But ultimately, somehow I managed to convince them, and they were like,
Mhm.
"Okay, fine, you can go ahead." And yeah, so they let me go. I think it was a lot of different emotions. Like I was scary, seeing two new worlds, started staying alone, never stayed apart from my parents because I born and brought up in Delhi till my master's. So there were a lot of new things to learn. Initially, I was heavily homesick and all that, but I think after a point you do learn things, and
Mhm.
it was really good. I feel that I was such a strong decision that I took, that moving out of Delhi and seeing things. And obviously, Bangalore is one of the best place to be in science. So I think that was good. And now from that moving to US, I think wasn't such a big deal because my parents were like, "Yeah, we know you're not gonna do what we say, and you are gonna go," and you end up convincing us. So you go. So they didn't do it, but yeah, it was exciting. I think one thing I would say that not being satisfied what you have, it sometimes could be good because you always end up being into a new adventure. And I think that's something that stimulates me also. So I'm like, yeah, why not try it? That's all. Like, why not try it? There's nothing wrong. Even if I don't like, at least I know I tried it and I don't like. And this is what is something that I always tell myself. Even if you don't like something, just try it out. And you can at least tell yourself you tried, you didn't like, and you have your own answer instead of saying in the question that, oh, I wish I could have tried it. Maybe the life would have been different or things would have been different. No, I don't want to live with that question. It's like, I tried. I did not like. It didn't work for me. I know it. So let's end there. Then staying in the question that I wish I could have tried that kind of thing.
Sweet. So
So
when giving your energy to all these trials
yeah.
and things not working, how exhausted you feel at that time?
A lot. It's obviously, it's just not my fee for me. I think for everyone who puts their heart
Mhm.
and soul in something and it doesn't work. And
Mhm.
I think this is what is one part of learning in PhD is that it's 80% failure and 20% success. And that's what it teaches you to be more resilient. And I think that's one thing I have taken up from my PhD is being resilient. And that's, I think, most of us. And we have to learn and go with the mindset. You have to be persistent, determined, and resilient when you go for a PhD, because if you don't have, you're not going to sustain there. I think it's just not PhD, but also being a researcher, because I don't think the
Yes.
science work, even after PhD, it's the same story. It's, again,
Mm-hmm.
the failure always is little more than the success. So you have
Mm-hmm.
to keep that quality with you throughout your life in science, I think.
Here, I would love to say that Neetu, your success rates, when you mentioned it's like 80% of failure and 20% of success, is
Mm,
way more than most of our researcher celebrities, because they say 90% times it's not working, 10% time only working. So you already have achieved that 10% extra in that. Now, when you are doing research in India and in USA, what is the basic difference you see in research as such?
okay, I've just recently joined her like a couple of months ago, so I don't have enough experience already here.
Mhm.
Till now, I don't find very big difference apart from like having obviously the financial thing. That's something I find it here is more available than I had in India. Like the reagents and resources that we could get is more faster, because if we have to wait for like a month to get a reagent, here it's a day or two, something
Mhm.
like that. And also things that you have done from basics in India, as simple as like counting a cell on a hemocytometer versus having automatic cell counters available in your labs here. So
Mhm.
yeah, so basically that's already I can see is better here than in India. But yeah, I think that's I think one of the things that I found till now, which is very different.
Mhm. So now when we are having this conversation about research, and you mentioned your journey of, coming
Mhm,
from Delhi to all
mhm,
of this,
mhm,
what are your thoughts about women in research? Because this is something which is coming up, and we recently have celebrated women in research as a full month series for December. How do you feel that, is it required to talk about women in research, or you think, what are your thoughts about it?
I think we should definitely talk about women in research, because the life of a female researcher or the woman researcher in science is very different than a male researcher, because they come with these additive responsibilities with that. It doesn't matter, irrespective of your nationality or the things, you have always have little bit more commitment towards family than a male researcher has. And that also comes from the expectations that our societies have built up for us. And also, so then you have to see how this, because I also found that the number of people who leave science or finish their PhD and then just diverted into other fields, I think the proportion for females are more than the males. Lots of like not a very few females will decide to leave and go ahead with their research career in science abroad than the male.
Mhm.
So, but I don't know why it is, or do we not get, because people do say, I think we have enough support, but I do sometimes feel not real, you know. It's a lot of family support and the support from the institute and then colleagues that require for a woman scientist to be, progressing and being sustaining in this scientific world. Because I think the proportion is very skewed right now. Also, like the number of female students who do MSc end up being for PhD, and how many females who do PhD end up going for postdoc, and how many of those postdoc females end up being into a faculty position or all other higher position. It's always like just dropping. It's just going
Mhm.
downwards. It's never like okay, it's going never been higher. So yeah, so I'm sure there's something wrong there, and we have to fix. I think we are working towards it, but yeah, it still requires more work for it.
With the present opportunities given and supported by Government of India, when there are opportunities for specifically empowering women in science, we are fortunate enough to have some fundings in there, and probably we hope that it improves in future. So I would like to say, all of our viewers and audience, if you are a researcher, happen to be a woman, as Neetu has set this example, you should be your own leader. We don't need anyone else to show us the path that, okay, we will make it easier for you. No, I don't think that what we believe at Empowering Sense Foundation, that breaking the barrier is the thing which you individually have to do, and you have to believe in it. No one else will break it for you. And Researcher Celebrities is one of such initiatives where we believe that all the research should be celebrated. All the researchers should be celebrated. Today, we are celebrating Dr. Neetu here with us, being a researcher celebrity. We want to celebrate every researcher without talking about their genders. Why we are having this conversation when we started this with Dr. Neetu, that there are differences in the society which we are part of it. We can say that this is something which we build, can be questionable, but this is what we are part of it, and we have this responsibility to change it. And people and researchers like Neetu are the torch bearers which makes it change by their own actions. Neetu, coming back to research and family life, how different was for you that you said that parents was very happy because they knew by the time that, okay, you are not going to listen, you will do whatever you do, you go to United States. How about the partner?
I think I was fortunate in that sense as well, that I found a really good partner. I was fortunate because I chose him, so I decided it for myself. And I
Mm-hmm.
would say, I think I was so good on my parents that they let me do it and they trusted my decision because they're like, okay, you decided, must be for something good. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that was not really a big problem for me, I would say, because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what I said. I chose, I knew what I wanted for myself. So whether it's in a partner in my life, so I think it was like pretty okay for me.
So now this will lead us to next question of ours.
Mhm.
PhD,
Mhm.
apart from degree, what PhD has given to you?
Actually, a lot. I
Mm-hmm.
would say a lot. It was, I think degree was just part of it. It also
Okay.
gives you, because I think the time you start your PhD, you are 23 or 22 years old, when you're very naive, just starting to learn how the world works. You end
Mm-hmm.
up doing a PhD when you're like 28, 29.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you become an adult. So
Mm-hmm.
your whole growth from being, naive to being an adult goes in your PhD. So
Mm-hmm.
literally teaches you a way of life,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I think it's a lot of things that comes with it, like, learning how to be determined, persistent, resilient, and also a way of living, balancing your work, learning, having a lot of self-awareness, and also getting more, trying to figure out how to balance your work and your personal life, or getting your attention towards your health, because sometimes we are excited and end up working like overtime, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when your body gives you signal you have to stop. There are more things that you have to take care of, and that's one of them is your body. So take a pause, and you have to choose to do other things as well in your life. So I think this is what all is a PhD about, because I think before that we were really not really left like that, because I think most of people say that being a researcher is you also work a lot of time alone,
Yes.
and it also gives you time for self-reflection because you're all alone. You're not being surrounded by people. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to like see yourself more often than anyone else. So the self-awareness and okay, the other things that are more important. You have to pick up your health, your mental health, balancing the work, your food and other habits. So yeah, I think it's also and sums up in your PhD where you come towards the end of your PhD, you have learned all about this stuff apart from just doing science, getting a degree, publishing a PhD paper, and all that.
Mm-hmm. So you just touched about maintaining the work-life balance, which is nowadays a talk all around the community, not only in research, but everywhere else.
Hmm.
People do talk about keeping this balance.
Mhm.
How is it being a researcher and managing time with work and life balance? What are your experiences with that?
I think I wouldn't say I do it very well, but I think I do it enough that I need, because I think initially I would say that every PhD student goes into PhD where they're just working day and night without realizing. And at some point they get so burnt out and they're like, okay, this is the time to step back. And your body starts signaling you that you're overtired, you're sleep deprived, that things not working, and it's like all over the place. And then you're like, okay, let's step back and figure out what's wrong. And that's when you start doing other things, like taking care of yourself, going for exercises regularly, trying to take walks or whatever you like to do, and also working. But you're limiting your work to be like not just lying in the lab, I would say, but
Mhm.
really actively working for certain hours where you can completely focus. Because also, if
Mhm.
you're not well rested, you cannot focus. And this
True.
is something we do realize very late, that you need to be well rested, and just being in the lab does not make you productive.
Absolutely.
So that's something that we all have to learn, and some people know it already. I didn't know. I learned it towards little late that, yeah, working some hours in the, because in some hours in the lab and then well rested is equally important. I agree that sometimes you have to do spend long hours for experiments, but that's okay. But it shouldn't be every day. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I think this is something which we always talk about in all of our
Hmm.
conversation with our researcher celebrity. And audience should be aware of this time by now, that starting a PhD with all the enthusiasm, when in first or at max in first 2 years, you burnt out so bad that
Yes.
sometimes it is mental health which is affected for the rest of the life, which should not be the case. And learning from experiences of our peers is one thing which research is all about, because whenever we publish our own paper, we give so many, in there, that how many people around the globe has worked on it. And that's why they are in your references. If
Yes.
we can acknowledge people in our publication, why not in our life? Why not when we think that, okay, we are starting the journey of PhD, what people have suffered through, what they have walked on. Obviously, it is your path, you have to walk in it, but it is always good to get some information from your peers and utilize them, which can make you more productive and which can save you from a lot of suffering. Neetu, you said that there were incidences when you gave up or you took a break from the projects. You might have seen people taking, and you said that quitting the PhD also, you have seen some researchers. When you see a person like this, what is the first thing, or if you see in your surrounding, comes to you, which can motivate them, which can help them? What are your suggestions about that?
I think one thing I would say, the best thing that always worked for me is talking to my peers and talking to my mentor. And if you are not in position of talking to your mentor, you can always find other people to talk to. I think I was very fortunate to be on the campus of Bliss, where you have more than one resources. If you cannot talk to your mentor, you always have other people or other professors around, because it gives you that sense of community that you can go and talk to. For me, it was always been going to my professor and telling her what I'm going through, and she always came up with the idea that could keep me sustaining. So I think the first person should be your professor, because they knows you, they've seen you working, so they knows you better than anyone else in that position. So that's one place you can go and talk to. Obviously, talking to your friends and other professor makes sense. When you talk to your peers, I think they have less experience about the things. So I'm not saying they may not give you the best advice, but maybe it's just what they have experience in. Talking to someone who is elder, have gone through a lot of things, always benefits you more, because they can see a bigger picture than you'll not be able to see at that point. So I think that always helps. They can guide you, they can help you. And it could be just your professor, or maybe other PIs on campus, or other mentors you can seek. And I think that's really important to do at that point, before just deciding and like, okay, I'm quitting. I think that's
Oh,
important to
absolutely.
do.
Yeah, and I think this is something which we always tell to all of our viewers, that speaking your heart out, either to your mentor, as Neetu just correctly said, because they are the one who knows you always, that the number of hours you have worked. is something which they know.
Hmm.
The data you have generated, the experiments which are not working, they know all of that. So they should be your to-go people to discuss and narrate all of that. And friends and family are also your strong pillars of your life. They support you not only in life, but also you being a researcher. Whenever you goes and tell them, they might not understand the technicalities of your
Mhm.
project, but they are there for you. So the role of family and friend is very crucial for any single human being on this earth, and researchers are not exceptional to that. Speaking of which, Neetu, when you see things are not working for you scientifically, and being family very supportive, how does that impact a researcher?
A lot, actually, a lot.
Mhm.
I would say that because family support was important because I could say that like even though my parents did not understood what I'm trying to do, but they had more life experience in my whole life. So they
Mhm.
was always there. They always were giving me advice, how to get through it. Like it's okay, it's just a tough time. You'll get through it. Just keep trying. The
Mhm.
hard work never get wasted. So just keep doing whatever you're trying to do, and it's gonna work one day. So
Mhm.
don't worry, don't be disheartened. So these were the kind words that I always got from my parents and specifically from my mom when I told her that, oh, things are not working out. I've been trying so hard and I don't know what to do. So as you said, I think you always have to have this emotional support with you because that also helps you from breakdowns and burnout because
Yes.
with your mentor, PIs, POs, and colleagues, you get this professional support. I think friends and the family which gives you this emotional support for you
Mhm.
to keep going, and I think both of them are equally important to have in life.
Absolutely. And now, when we are talking, having this conversation, and which is moving towards a destination, I would like to ask you that what are your thoughts about researchers being celebrities?
Oh, I think that's really amazing. Okay, because I don't know. I always thought, why do people don't celebrate these cultures? Because they are more important than the Bollywood
Mhm.
celebrities, and
Absolutely.
we are the real superstars. Somebody should
Mhm.
celebrate us as well, and we are. We're starting the
Absolutely.
journey, and I think with COVID, it has really put the spotlight on researchers and scientists, and I think people do understand it better and valued it because I remember going back home after COVID, everybody was curious to know what I'm doing, what kind of research did people being able to solve the COVID, why did come and all that. So I realized that, and they're like, do you are the right person to ask because you are a researcher. I was like, yeah, I think people know that now. So yeah, so it has changed the perspective of the society a lot, and I think we are moving in that direction where yeah, they are also like celebrities.
Absolutely. Empowering Science Foundation believes in breaking the barriers, and one of the such barrier is celebrating research. So our series, Researcher Celebrities, is actually celebrating every researcher possibly in the universe and probably out of the galaxy whenever
That's
we
great.
find them. So thank you very much, Neetu, for taking time out and sharing the journey with all of the viewers. The word of wisdom at the last of the conversation, what we asked, what are your suggestions for budding researchers?
Okay. So I think one thing from my experience I could say is take your time. I think I always did that. I took my time to decide what I want to do for PhD. I took equal amount of time to decide what I want to do for my postdoc as well. I did not join the postdoc immediately. I had almost a year kind of thought process in my head going on to figure out what exactly I want to do, where I want to do, what kind of environment I want to do it. So I think those things are really important that you know what you want to do and where you want to do because that's the first step for having this big commitment going on because otherwise for you sustaining, as I said, it's not easy. I'm sure nothing is easy, but it's like to be able to take that 80 to 90% failure, you really need to be very strong and very determined. And getting that determination comes from not like waking up a day and say, oh, I decided today to be a researcher. No. you have to mentally prepare what it takes to be a researcher. So I think it's really important to take your time before deciding. And yeah, once you commit, I think it's just the journey where it takes you, kind of problems you'll face, and you have to just keep going, being persistent and determined.
Nice. It was pleasure having you, Neetu, as our researcher celebrity.
Thank you
And
so
I would,
much.
yeah, and I would like to tell all of our viewers that if you want to connect to Dr. Neetu, she is a published researcher. So you can just find out her email ID and write an email to her. If you want Empowering Science Foundation to put you in touch with our researcher celebrities, please feel free to write it to us. And stay tuned for another episode of Researcher Celebrity. With this, I will say thank you once again, Neetu, for sharing your
Thank you
journey.
so much for having me here. It's really nice having this conversation with you, and hope we motivate and get more people into science and research. I think that will be amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much. Good luck for your
Thank you.
future research.
Thank you so much.